Picture this. It's 1625. A poor, hot-blooded young man rides into Paris on a broken-down yellow horse that everybody laughs at. He has exactly three things to his name: a rusty sword, a letter of introduction that's about to get stolen from him, and a Templar that's going to get him into 4 duels before lunchtime. By the end of the day, he's challenged 3 of the deadliest swordsmen in France to fight him separately, and all 3 have agreed. Not because they hate him, because he insulted each of them completely by accident in the space of about 10 minutes while chasing after a stranger in a black cloak. That young man is D'Artagnan, and this is the story of how a broke, reckless country boy became inseparable from 3 men who were supposed to kill him, and how the 4 of them together took on a cardinal, a queen's secret, a seductive spy, and the entire machinery of French power. This is The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas and Auguste Maquet. It's got sword fights, spies, doomed love, betrayal, revenge, and one of the most iconic villains in all of literature. And nearly 200 years after it was written, it still hits like it was published last week. Let's get into it. Our story starts in Gascony, in the south of France, with a young nobleman named D'Artagnan. His family has almost no money, but his father gives him 3 things before he leaves home: an old sword, 15 crowns, and a letter meant for a powerful man in Paris, Monsieur de Tréville, the captain of the King's Musketeers. The advice that comes with all this is simple: fear nothing except the cardinal and the king. Fight at the smallest excuse, because dueling is one of the only ways a poor young nobleman can make a name for himself. D'Artagnan takes this advice a little too literally, almost immediately. On the road to Paris, he gets into a confrontation with a mysterious nobleman in a small town. This stranger insults D'Artagnan's ugly yellow horse. They nearly fight, and in the chaos, D'Artagnan gets knocked unconscious, and his precious letter of introduction is stolen. He also catches a glimpse of a beautiful woman traveling with the stranger, someone the man calls Milady. Neither of these 2 people are gone from the story. Remember them. D'Artagnan arrives in Paris bruised, broke, and without his letter of introduction, but he still manages to talk his way into an audience with Monsieur de Tréville, the captain of the King's Musketeers. And it's in Tréville's waiting room that the real story begins, because in the space of about 10 minutes, D'Artagnan manages to physically bump into 3 different musketeers, insult each one without meaning to, and get challenged to a duel by all 3. Their names are Athos, Porthos, and Aramis. Here's where the book turns from a simple adventure into something special. D'Artagnan shows up for his first duel with Athos, fully expecting to be killed. Athos is famous for his skill. But before they can cross swords, Porthos arrives for his own duel. Then Aramis arrives for his. All 3 of D'Artagnan's opponents are stunned to discover they're all here to fight the same reckless kid. Before the confusion can even resolve into laughter, the cardinal's guards show up. Dueling is illegal in Paris. The king has banned it, and getting caught fighting means arrest, disgrace, maybe worse. The 4 men are outnumbered 5 to 1. And in that moment, instead of running, D'Artagnan draws his sword and fights alongside the 3 musketeers he was just about to duel. They win, and from that day on, the 4 of them are inseparable. D'Artagnan becomes an honorary 4th musketeer, even though he's technically too young and unranked to join officially yet. Their friendship becomes the emotional backbone of the entire book, one for all and all for one. Now, quickly, so you know who's who going forward. Athos is the oldest, the most skilled swordsman, and the most tortured, noble, brooding, and hiding a devastating secret from his past that we'll get to. Porthos is huge, loud, vain about his clothes, obsessed with money and status, but fiercely loyal and surprisingly good-hearted.
Aramis is elegant, seems torn between being a soldier and becoming a priest, and is secretly involved with a string of aristocratic women. And D'Artagnan is the engine of the whole plot, impulsive, ambitious, brave to the point of foolishness, and the only one of the four still young enough to believe he can outsmart everyone.
To understand the stakes of this story, you need to understand the political tension running underneath everything. King Louis XIII sits on the throne, but the real power in France belongs to Cardinal Richelieu, brilliant, ruthless, and obsessed with control. Richelieu has his own private force of guards who are constantly clashing with the king's musketeers, and he has spies everywhere. The musketeers serve the king. The cardinal officially serves the king too, but everyone knows he's really playing his own game. Into this tension steps D'Artagnan's love interest, Constance Bonacieux, the young wife of D'Artagnan's landlord. Constance works for the Queen of France, Anne of Austria, and the Queen is in trouble. Here's the plot that kicks the whole story into high gear. King Anne is in a difficult, loveless political marriage to King Louis. Years earlier, she had a secret, mostly innocent romance with the English Duke of Buckingham, and as a token of affection, she gave him a set of diamond studs, jewelry that the king himself had given her. Cardinal Richelieu finds out about this, and he sees an opportunity to destroy the Queen's reputation and possibly end her marriage entirely, which would massively increase his own power. He manipulates the king into demanding that the Queen wear the diamond studs to an upcoming royal ball. The Queen is terrified because the studs are in England, in Buckingham's possession, and there's almost no time to get them back. Desperate, the Queen turns to Constance, who turns to D'Artagnan. And D'Artagnan, along with his three musketeer brothers, sets out on a secret, breakneck mission to England to recover the jewels before the ball, all while the cardinal's agents are actively trying to stop them. This is where we're introduced properly to one of literature's greatest villains, Milady de Winter. She's the same woman D'Artagnan glimpsed back at the very beginning of the book, and it turns out she's one of the cardinal's most valuable and most dangerous spies. Beautiful, brilliant, manipulative, and utterly without mercy, Milady is sent to intercept the studs before D'Artagnan can succeed. Along the road to the coast, the musketeers are ambushed one by one. This is Richelieu's doing, trying to whittle down the mission. Porthos is wounded and left behind. Aramis is forced to stop. Athos is captured. Only D'Artagnan makes it all the way to England.
There, D'Artagnan meets Buckingham, who is still hopelessly in love with the Queen, and who gladly hands over the studs, except two of them have already been stolen by Milady and sold. Buckingham, thinking fast, has exact replicas made overnight, so the set is complete again, and D'Artagnan races back to Paris just in time. The Queen wears the full set of diamonds to the ball, humiliating the cardinal in front of the entire court, and the Queen's secret and her marriage survive, at least for now. It's a thrilling cinematic sequence, and it establishes the core rhythm of the whole book, the musketeers succeeding through loyalty and daring, and Richelieu and Milady scheming in response. With the diamond crisis resolved, the story shifts toward the romance between D'Artagnan and Constance and the deepening menace of Milady. D'Artagnan falls hard for Constance, and for a while their relationship is one of the few genuinely tender threads in an otherwise violent story. But Constance is a witness to the Queen's secrets, which makes her a target. She's kidnapped by the cardinal's orders, and D'Artagnan spends a good stretch of the book desperately trying to find her, chasing rumors and following leads through convents and safe houses. Meanwhile, D'Artagnan makes a serious mistake. He becomes infatuated with Milady herself, without immediately realizing who she really is.
He seduces her, in part out of genuine attraction and in part as a kind of game, and in doing so he discovers her darkest secret. On her shoulder, Milady bears a brand, a fleur-de-lis, the mark that was burned into convicted criminals in France. It means Milady has a criminal past she has been hiding from everyone, including the cardinal. When Milady realizes D'Artagnan has seen the brand and knows her secret, her attraction curdles instantly into hatred. She becomes obsessed with destroying him. This is the turning point where Milady stops being simply the cardinal's agent and becomes D'Artagnan's personal, deeply dangerous enemy.
Around this point in the story, we get one of the most devastating reveals in the book. Athos, the noble, melancholy leader of the group, finally tells D'Artagnan about his past. Years earlier, when Athos was still a young nobleman under a different identity, he fell in love with and married a beautiful young woman. On their wedding night, he discovered, by accident, that she had the exact same fleur-de-lis brand on her shoulder that D'Artagnan just described seeing on Milady. Believing her to be a disguised criminal who had deceived him into marriage, Athos did something horrifying in a fit of despair and rage. He hanged her, believing he killed her, and left her for dead in the woods. It becomes clear, slowly and with real horror, that Milady and Athos's supposedly dead wife are the same woman. She survived the hanging somehow and rebuilt herself as one of the most dangerous secret agents in Europe. Athos has been carrying this guilt for years and now discovers the woman he thought he killed is alive, more dangerous than ever, and has already become entangled with his closest friends. This revelation reframes the entire second half of the book. Milady isn't just a scheming spy working for a powerful man. She's a survivor of genuine trauma and violence who has turned herself into someone who inflicts trauma and violence on others without hesitation. Dumas doesn't ask us to forgive her, but he does make her tragic as well as terrifying, which is part of why she remains such a compelling villain. The backdrop of the book's final act is a real historical event, the Siege of La Rochelle, where French royal forces surrounded a Protestant stronghold that was being supported by England. The Musketeers, including D'Artagnan, are sent to the front lines. In one of the most famous scenes in the book, the four friends make a bet that they can eat breakfast inside a small exposed bastion called Saint-Gervais, right in the middle of enemy fire, just to prove they aren't afraid and to have a private conversation where no one can eavesdrop. They actually pull it off, calmly eating and talking while occasionally fighting off attacks, and it becomes a legendary display of their courage and camaraderie under fire. But it's also here that D'Artagnan overhears something chilling. He learns that Milady has been given a direct secret commission by the cardinal to travel to England and either convince or force the Duke of Buckingham to stop supporting the rebels at La Rochelle, and if that fails, to assassinate him. D'Artagnan and his friends manage to warn Buckingham in time to save his life once, but Milady is relentless, and the wheels are already in motion for tragedy. The story builds to its darkest, most emotionally devastating stretch. Constance, who has been hidden away for her own protection in a convent, is finally reunited for one heartbreakingly brief moment with D'Artagnan. But Milady, tracking her down out of jealousy and cruelty, arrives at the same convent and poisons Constance, killing her right in front of D'Artagnan and Athos, who arrive only moments too late to save her. This is the moment the story stops being a swashbuckling adventure and becomes something closer to a revenge tragedy. The four friends, now joined by Lord de Winter, Milady's own brother-in-law, who has his own grudge against her, track Milady down. What follows is essentially an impromptu trial.
Each man who has been wronged by her stands and testifies. Athos, about the wife he thought he'd killed and the marriage built on a lie. D'Artagnan, about Constance. Lord de Winter, about his brother, whom Milady is strongly implied to have poisoned for his fortune. And a headsman who reveals he is the brother of a man Milady once seduced and ruined, driving him to a life of crime and eventually the gallows. Milady is convicted in this makeshift court of the men she's destroyed and executed. It's a chilling, morally uncomfortable scene. Justice and vengeance blur together completely, and Dumas doesn't give us an easy, clean feeling about it. It feels earned and horrifying at the same time.
In the aftermath, the political plot resolves as well. Richelieu, upon learning that Milady is dead and that his secret schemes involving her have come to light, actually admires the Musketeers for their nerve and competence rather than punishing them, a very Richelieu move, prioritizing usefulness over revenge. D'Artagnan, through a combination of bravery, the cardinal's grudging respect, and his own persistence, is finally granted the commission he's wanted since page 1. He becomes an official musketeer, a lieutenant, achieving the goal his father sent him to Paris to pursue. The final image of the book is bittersweet. D'Artagnan has grown from a reckless boy into a capable, respected soldier. But he's paid a real price to get there. Constance is gone, Athos carries fresh grief on top of old grief, and the four friends know that their season of pure, youthful adventure together is ending, as if new chapters of their lives, separately, are just beginning. So why does a swashbuckling story from the 1840s about 17th century French politics still resonate with people today? Part of it is simply the friendship at the center of the book. All for one and one for all has become one of the most recognizable phrases in Western storytelling, and it captures something people are always hungry for, the idea that loyalty between friends can be stronger than any institution, any government, any personal danger. In a world where a lot of our relationships today are mediated through screens and algorithms, there's something deeply appealing about four people who will physically stand back to back and fight for each other without hesitation. There's also the theme of ambition and reinvention. D'Artagnan arrives in Paris with nothing but a sword and a temper, and through wit, courage, and persistence, he becomes someone who matters. That's a story every generation retells, because every generation has young people trying to prove they're more than where they came from. Then there's the more uncomfortable, more modern theme buried in the character of Milady. She's a product of trauma turned into a weapon, someone who was hurt so badly so early that she decided the only way to survive was to become more dangerous than the people who hurt her. Modern audiences who talk a lot more openly about cycles of abuse and trauma often find her far more sympathetic and far more disturbing than readers might have in Dumas' own time. She raises real questions about how much we should hold someone accountable for the damage they do once we understand the damage that was done to them. And finally, there's the political backdrop. Powerful people manipulating public perception, spreading secrets and misinformation to gain advantage, ordinary people getting caught in the crossfire of decisions made by kings, cardinals, and spies. That dynamic of regular people navigating a world run by figures far more powerful than themselves hasn't gone anywhere. If anything, it feels more relevant now than ever. At its heart, The Three Musketeers is a story about who you become when you choose your people carefully, and then choose to stay loyal to them no matter what it costs you. D'Artagnan starts the book alone on a broken-down horse, and he ends it as part of something larger than himself, a brotherhood built not on family or money, but on shared danger and mutual trust. It's also a story about the long shadow of the past.
Athos's secret, Milady's transformation, the Queen's youthful indiscretion. Every major crisis in this book is rooted in something that happened years before the story even begins. Dumas seems to be telling us that we never really escape our history. We only get to decide what we do with it once it catches up to us. So if you take one thing away from this story, let it be this: the people who stand beside you when everything is on the line are worth more than any title, any fortune, or any single victory. Athos, Porthos, Aramis, and D'Artagnan didn't just survive Cardinal Richelieu and Milady de Winter because they were skilled swordsmen. They survived because they refused to face any of it alone. All for one, one for all. Nearly 200 years later, it's still the reason we remember their names. If you enjoyed this journey through the Three Musketeers, let me know in the comments which character you'd want standing next to you in a fight. And stick around, because there's a lot more storytelling like this coming your way.